The hate they live. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, what happens when you're a Christian espousing traditional Christian views on human sexuality and you hold a rally in Seattle?
But a time of blessing and praise quickly devolved into chaos. Far-left activists and Antifa militants tried to disrupt the concert.
Pushing cops, fighting, absolutely insane.
Throwing water balloons at the crowd, menacing attendees, and some activists even tried rushing the stage.
But there was more chaos yesterday when a Christian group held a peaceful rally under the hashtag Don't Mess With Our Kids, and they were attacked by violent Antifa radicals. Police were called in, but the thugs wearing masks felt entitled. They felt entitled to harass the families who were trying to get into the event. Now, just a few days earlier, Mayor Bruce Harrell's office in Seattle had defended the free speech rights of that group. No, not of the Christians. He referred to the gathering of Christians as a far-right rally and a right-wing national effort designed to provoke a reaction inherently opposed to his city's values, which, of course, are very LGBTQ+ friendly. He claimed he was committed to justice and to fairness. But instead of instilling calm, this guy's words tacitly greenlit the violence that would end up occurring. And as I said, over the weekend, the pastor who spoke at the first rally, well, he had demanded an apology.
Bruce Harrell, the mayor of Seattle, owes Christians in Washington state an apology for his bigoted remarks after folks who were holding a peaceful worship event were violently assaulted. Police officers were hospitalized. Church people were assaulted. And the mayor of Seattle has the audacity to blame Christians for the violence. Nothing could be more demonic and untrue.
Well, the FBI has announced that it's doing an investigation. Thank goodness. Go Dan Bongino. Well, it's about time, isn't it, that these violent thugs feel the consequences of their actions. There are potential civil rights violations here, 18 U.S.C. Section 241. And these types of threats, intimidation, acts of physical violence, if they're allowed to continue without severe punishment, well, what can we expect? We can expect that things are going to get worse, not get better. Now, for years, the left beat the drum that Trump was a threat to democracy. We still hear that. They call him a dictator. Sometimes they've even called him Hitler. And we had 2 assassination attempts in the span of a few months. The groundwork laid for all this violence, though, it was years in the making, and all by Democrats.
You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Go to the Hill today. Get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there is unrest in our lives.
Senators threaten Supreme Court justices.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
And their new stars, they're openly calling it warfare.
And goddamn it, shut down the Senate!
No wonder the far left feels like it can get away with targeting Jews on campus or Christians in a public park. Because for them, committing acts of violence or intimidation or harassment, it's become a civic duty. They're just carrying out their marching orders. This is what the modern-day Democrat Party has spawned. And these Democrats, they rail on about Charlottesville and claim that January 6th disqualified Trump from office? Nice try. The voters saw right through that, and they see what you're doing, and they're rejecting it. Because we have a Constitution, because Trump's in office, these coordinated campaigns of violence and intimidation, they're not going to be swept under the rug. And in other countries, unfortunately, it's easy to do this. Remember what we've seen in places like China, where churches have been demolished, worshipers harassed and even jailed. The suffering of Syrian Christians post-Assad, well documented. In Iraq, according to our own State Department, the number of Christians has gone from 1.1 million in 2011 to only about 120,000 as of last year. They've been slaughtered or driven out by Islamic militants. In the Middle East, the cradle of Christianity, the faithful are asking whether it's the end of the line for them. But most Western elites, they're blissfully unconcerned by this. The truth is, most liberals, like the Seattle mayor, view traditional Christianity as repressive and extremist. Because if you have a biblical worldview of gender and sexuality, odds are that you're going to be labeled as haters and anti-LGBTQ plus fanatics. And we've seen Christians are routinely derided by well-known television personalities.
It's one thing to talk to Jesus. It's another thing when Jesus talks to you.
Exactly. Okay, well, that's different.
That's different. That's called mental illness, if I'm not correct.
Christianity has long been used to justify the oppression of others. It was used to justify slavery. It was used to justify Jim Crow.
It's dangerous because it's a radically anti-democratic ideology.
Now, these people loathe Middle America, and they loathe Middle America's faith.
Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy?
They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalist.
Now, who doubts that if they thought they could deny Christians a platform to speak, that they would? Or if they could ban traditional churches, certain churches and certain church teachings, who doubts that they would? They're extremist groups. They want attention, according to Mayor Harrell's spokesperson, Callie Craighead, and they're further publishing their event would assist their goal, she said. Well, here are the facts. If you're a Christian and you believe in traditional values, the left and its supporters see you as an enemy. And they're going to do everything possible, if they can, to wreck your career, hinder your ability to speak, brainwash your kids, and even get in your face and assault you. And with their own incendiary rhetoric, Democrats have fueled the intimidation campaigns. But don't they see how desperate and weak this makes them look? And this is why so many Christians support Donald Trump. They simply do not trust Democrats to protect their religious liberty. And who can blame them? And that's the end.
Kamala went down under to Australia. She brought Dougie not so fresh. It was a romantic weekend getaway. Walks by the water, in the park. Doug leaned in. Never lean in, Dougie. How many times do we have to say it? So what was Kamala doing halfway across the world? Well, she was a surprise guest at a real estate conference. You're probably asking, what does Kamala know about real estate? No idea. The real estate agents at the conference said Kamala lost focus. It was so bad the conference didn't even post a video of her interview, even though they posted everybody else's. What were they trying to hide? Well, we found out. We got our hands on the tape, and she hasn't changed.
I have a lived experience that has taught me something I talk about all the time, which is my lived experience that tells me that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And I consider it a blessing and a privilege to have that lived experience in a way that it gives me a true sense of understanding of what is possible when we think of building communities.
Kamala Harris sounds like she's doing an impression of Kamala Harris. And she's still unburdened.
Who fight for freedom. They see what can be, and they're unburdened by what has been. They believe in what is possible. And so even though it may be characterized as a fight, it really is, and should I think be thought of in the context of a fight for something, as opposed to against something.
Kamala hasn't learned a thing, but she swears Barack Obama taught her history. And now she calls herself a student of history.
I think one of the very special aspects of who he is he really is a student of history. And it's critically important because coupled with the enthusiasm that comes with ambition and optimism must be the clear-eyed focus of understanding where we've been. And being a student of history is, I think, one of the best ways to then contextualize the importance and the relevance of what we are doing today.
Remember when Kamala was really into space? Now she's into history. And like most Democrats, she only knows about World War II. So she flew all the way to Australia to teach them about Hitler.
It's important we remember the 1930s. It's important that we remember that history has taught us that isolation does not equal insulation. It is important that we understand and remember history, which taught us the interdependence and interconnection between nations, the importance of friendships, integrity, honesty. There's so much about foreign affairs that is just like the importance of having good friendships.
What's Kamala doing? Well, she says she's unemployed, but she's looking for a job. Australia regrettably regretted the invitation. The audience didn't think she was super engaging. Democrats here at home say, don't call her boring. She likes memes.
Kamala Harris, for whatever you say about her, did connect with people culturally. There was the Brett Summer. There were all these people putting up the coconut memes.
Behind the scenes, everyone knew the Harris campaign was a lemon. One donor told an Obama guy who joined the campaign, it'll be political suicide. You're going to be a loser. Another told another Obama guy after Harris lost, you're just an old, broken down boy. Remember, Barry had his guys run her campaign. It backfired, and he's getting the blame. One DNC insider says the old Obama playbook no longer works. Another Democrat says Barry has blood on his hands. I'm sorry, I don't want a surgeon who keeps killing the patients. The Obamas are dodging bullets, just like it's the South Side of Chicago. First, Barack called black men sexist for not voting for Harris. Now Michelle's blaming the women.
There are a lot of men who have, they have big chairs at their tables. You know, there are a lot of women who vote the way their man is going to vote. It happened in this election.
Michelle thinks women only voted for Trump because their husbands did. Is she saying women just do what they're told? Because Barack can't tell her what to do. If he could, she wouldn't be doing a podcast. Another former Obama guy, Rahm, is saying the whole party is just too weak and woke. Democrats are clawing his eyes out, too.
Is Rahm Emanuel right here? Has your party become too woke, too non-masculine, and not talking with people about the things that matter?
No, he's dead wrong. Look, this is the party of FDR. We did originally make in America. We industrialized the entire country. It's the party that has guaranteed Americans Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid.
The Obama people are just getting shellacked. And now everybody's out for Hakeem. Unnamed Democrats say his mild-mannered personality is too meek, and his messaging is disorganized, chaotic, and aimless. Democrats say Hakeem's not a general, and we're in for the fight of our lives. The party misses Nancy, and Hakeem's a little emotional. Insiders in his office say he's extremely sensitive to criticism, particularly comparisons to Pelosi. Men should never let women drive them nuts. I never let Jessica get under my skin, ever. Hakeem's hungry for revenge. His people want a no-holds-barred fight with anyone on Nancy's team that trash-talked him. Quote, if I were downtown, I'd think twice about bringing someone willing to knife the leader for their own gain into my orbit. It's a royal rumble. Even the media is rolling up its sleeves. Stephen A., he wants to tangle with Jake over Bidengate.
I want to know personally what role Jake Tapper played in not reporting on certain information. We saw it. How did Jake Tapper not see it? And as he continues to speak about all of this, where's his mea culpa? Because I don't see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Tapper doesn't want the heat. He's trying to get ahead of it by saying he's transitioning.
I went on a left-leaning podcast that shall remain nameless, and they asked me about my son, and I said he was, he's a football player and he wants to be a policeman. And their joke was about my 15-year-old son, oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And that was the big laugh. And then I got dragged in the comments and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is why you are losing elections.
First of all, why is Jake in the comment section? Second, why is he shocked liberals are shaming cops? CNN pushed the racist cops hoax for years. Defund the police. Hands up, don't shoot. It's great his kid wants to be a cop, but Jake's not going to make the streets easy. Tapper's pretty much saying Fox was right about everything. Every Democrat's saying it. Mayor Pete is hitting the podcast scene. As the Babylon Bee puts it, Dems unveil plan to win back men by having gay guy grow a beard. And now he sounds like Jesse Waters' primetime. Listen.
What do you think y'all should have done differently?
One, for the love of God, figure out a way to get the schools open sooner. Obviously, pay more attention to the border. That's real, and that's going to be something that you can't just take your time to deal with. Three, even though you spent your entire political lifetime believing that the economy and jobs are the same thing, remember that prices is just as big a part of the economy. It just hasn't come up much in the last 40 years, right?
Pete just admitted we were right about COVID, the border, and inflation after he admitted we were right about Biden's brain. So if we were right about everything, why is he still a Democrat? He's saying Democrats were wrong about everything, but what, they're going to get it right next time? You actually think if Democrats win back the White House, they're going to keep the border closed and not spend trillions of dollars and not do the whole windmill thing? If a perp with 16 felony convictions is in front of a judge saying, Your Honor, if I make bail, I swear I'll keep my nose clean this time. No bail. Here's how I know they haven't learned a thing. They just confessed to the crime of the century, having a brain-dead president who didn't sign executive orders and a shadow government. And their new idea, they want to put together a shadow cabinet. Yeah. Like a cabinet of unelected Democrats who can run things, kind of like what we just had. Giselle Fetterman for shadow DHS secretary. Tish James for shadow AG. Jon Stewart for shadow VA secretary. Bill Nye the science guy for shadow EPA. And Mark Cuban, shadow commerce. Kamala was a little upset she wasn't named shadow president, but she didn't qualify. She just doesn't have the lived experience.
We have more on that straight ahead. But first tonight, the walls are closing on the Democrats and the state-run legacy media mob as more and more evidence shows up that they helped cover up Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And guess what? Who knew what? What did they know? When did they know it? And who was really in charge the last 4 years? Every one of you deserves answers to all of those questions and more. Now, thankfully, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, he is working to get those answers. Last week, Chairman Comer sent letters to Biden's former White House physician, Kevin O'Connor, as well as 4 top senior aides demanding that they appear for transcribed interviews. Now, Comer alleges that all of these staffers work behind the scenes to run interference, to hide just how bad Joe Biden's decline was from the American public. Now, last week, he told Fox News that unelected bureaucrats had an overwhelming influence on Biden and were possibly even serving as the de facto president. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. A pro-energy group, Power the Future, they are now demanding answers on the alleged use of the auto pen, saying that there's no evidence that Biden knew about several climate executive orders he allegedly signed. In particular, the group says executive orders banning Arctic drilling, committing the federal government to net zero emissions by 2050, mandating clean energy AI centers, and banning offshore drilling should be deemed null and void due to the use of auto pen, and no public comment from Biden confirming any knowledge of it at the time or since. Now, we need congressional hearings, we need more information, we need answers, and people need to be held responsible for what is now quickly becoming the biggest White House political scandal of our lifetime. Maybe we should call it Dementia Gate, but somehow Democrats still don't seem to get it. Remember, back in March, failed vice presidential candidate Tim Walz, he wanted a shadow government to counter the Trump administration. You might recall. Take a look.
I've been saying this. I think we need a shadow government so when all these things come up every single day, we've got an alternate press conference telling the truth about what things are happening.
Democracy in peril. A shadow government, alternate press conferences. Sounds like a blatant attempt to subvert the will of the American people. Now, not to be outdone, though, Politico is now fantasizing about what a shadow Democratic cabinet would even look like, which includes, and you can't make it up, Giselle Fetterman, Nikki Glaser, the comedian, Jon Stewart, the comedian, Letitia James, and others. That's more akin to like an Orwellian nightmare than a legitimate cabinet. And what about this Broadway star, Patti LuPone, who allegedly told The New Yorker that the Kennedy Center should, quote, get blown up? How is that not a threat? Remember Madonna said, I think, an awful lot about blowing up the White House. If Democrats want to find the true threat to democracy, they just need to look in the mirror, because it's kind of hard to imagine a bigger threat to our democratic republic, or democracy, as they say, than a group of unelected bureaucrats allegedly taking advantage of a obviously cognitively struggling president to implement their own radical left wing agenda. The very people that tried to tell you Donald Trump is a threat to democracy were actually the real threat themselves.
But if reality doesn't fit Sam's belief, then reality must be wrong. It comes down to ego, which has you guard your opinions with your life as you put others, like our presidents, at risk. They put us in danger over a delusion, and rather than man up, they blame others. Podcasters, Russian collusion, white men, toxic masculinity, anything to avoid the painful truth that it's never about evil at all. It's about needing to be right. So much so, you'd even say this.
At that point, Hunter Biden literally could have had the corpses of children in his basement. I would not have cared.
Well, when you openly admit that you'd accept any evil to maintain your certitude, then the only real evil is you. Let's welcome tonight's guest. He claims probable cause for breaking women's hearts. Fox News contributor Paul Morrow. His credit score proves Jews don't run the banks. Comedian Rich Voss. She was the inspiration for noise-canceling headphones. Outnumbered co-host Emily Capano. And finally, Bigfoot reports sightings of him. New York Times bestselling author, comedian, and former NWA World Champion Harrell. Paul, are you enjoying this turmoil as much as I am, and watching you watching people in different gradations coming to this realization that the last 5-10 years has been a huge sunk cost?
It really, and you know what's so disturbing? He's the left's leading intellectual.
Yeah.
That's the best guy they got, aside from Jasmine Crockett, of course.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you think about it, what we've done, America historically, if you put it in context, has been so successful. We've created an entire class of people whose job is essentially to bore you at parties.
Yeah.
Right? That's all they do is sit around and think and obsess. It's the media, it's academia, it's the think tanks. He comes out of that whole world. This guy's never had a real job. He's a Hollywood brat. So he's a philosopher. I didn't realize there was a job that's philosopher. What's the pension on that? So if you think about it, his job really is just to sit around and obsess on the fact that they've lost power. And it took Trump to come in to finally, we've gotten soft. Say what you want, you can vote for Trump, not vote for Trump, like him, don't like him. Trump is the first guy who's come in and rung the bell and said, we've gone soft. This is not an accident. This could all go away.
Yeah.
We got here by being the toughest guys on the block and protecting those values, and it can go away. The whole world's a schoolyard, right? And right now, America is a little bit, there's a lot of bullies in that schoolyard, and we're backed into a corner. And we have the president of the chess club who's telling us how to handle it. No. You got to get tough. We got to be strong. And thank God he came along, because if it was Biden and this committee, you know, Canada would be looking at making us a state.
You know how many nights my wife has said I've gone soft?
You know, we have a product that advertises on the station that can help you.
Yeah. What's that robot look like?
So, Rich, you know, you've been following politics for decades.
Yes.
You've written many books on it.
And yeah, I don't read, but I'm a writer.
Are you feeling bad for the Dems as they navel gaze through their misery?
Well, first of all, I don't know why I'm dressed like I'm going to a domino tournament in Cuba, but you know, this cover-up stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the white man's word for lying.
Yeah.
It is. You never see black people go, yo, Rashim covered up. No, he lied.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's lying. So if I had a punchline to go after this,
well,
I'm covering up.
He was a liar. Rashid's ass be lying all the time.
Yeah, he's lying. It's not a cover up. You know, and I would cover up. I would hide in the shadows too if this is, you know, if I was an imbecile or closed-minded or pointed the finger. Maybe I should go to the shadows. Because, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you kind of peaked with the Cuban joke.
No, listen.
I mean, we're paying a lot for
He
that
also
Cuban
didn't know that a lot of the people here are very close friends with Rashid.
Yeah. But let me explain something to you.
Yeah.
I have to throw a joke and then do some politics.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? I mix it up.
Yeah, you do mix it up.
Can you move on?
Emily, what is so hard? I mean, do you have a hard time admitting when you're wrong? What am I doing?
Sorry. This is the Rashid joke. It just makes me funny. Oh, he's funny. He's a funny man.
Funny how? Funny like I'm
funny. You amuse me.
When have I ever been wrong? I kid. I thought it was so interesting what you said. The thing to me that I think the Democrats are going through is that whiplash. Because it's not just power, it's the control from which their power was derived. And they had no tighter control over all of us than during COVID. So I think after the lockdowns, when we look back on that, I think it's difficult to put into words how history will portray it. But I mean, the amount of control. Pastors couldn't preach. Pastors were arrested for giving sermons outside. We saw bars that were criminally prosecuted for continuing their liquor licenses taken away. Like, it was such a perversion of the administrative state and the regulatory state with the criminalization of people all over. And nothing that they did prevented deaths. In fact, it furthered it. And then right after that, I think that the Democrats, the last thing they expected was for people to wrest back control and wrest back that power because they thought they had it in the bag. Well, if they're going to entrust everything to us, of course they'll entrust their children's biology and the border and the like. But at the end of the day, that fallacy of the choice of true evil versus a coma, or the undemocratic, the threat to democracy versus what they did, which was obliterate democracy. They did do a coup. So I see right now we're opening it up and we're seeing this abscess and what pus is in the wound.
Yes.
But those subpoenas, that's the next step. The testifying is the next step. And then their criminal prosecution is that final step, because there's a sentencing that has to happen.
All right. Welcome back, Tyrus.
What I missed, Greg?
Oh, nothing at all. Just another slow week in paradise. Care to comment on this topic that we have so delved into for the past 15 or so minutes?
No, I'm still shook about the whole Rashid lying thing. I need some time. I think it's. You look at history when stuff like this happens, and since they like to use the term Hitler so often, we can remember that when the various generals and people that were a part of that evil empire were brought to justice, they often tried to say, well, we were under the impression that the Jewish people were an existential threat. So it's really not our fault what we did because we were just following orders trying to protect. There's no difference in this. And nothing should ever be compared to what happened to the Jewish people under the Hitler regime. But because they keep bringing it in our place is the only reason why I'm using it.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to this. We still had people who lost their lives under this so-called group of normal people. Like, you have to keep bringing up Afghanistan. You have to keep bringing up not having Secret Service members to guard a president who somebody's running for president. There is thousands of the Border Patrol agents. We look at all the things to do. This wasn't normal people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a normal American. A normal American would be like, he's not right. It's my duty as an American to report to the American people that this president's not fit to serve. That's what a normal American does. What these extreme progressives did was this was their opportunity to take over this government because they cannot get elected by themselves. Bernie Sanders does not have enough to cross the threshold. So this little group of people, and you look at the people, unelected people making decisions on someone who was completely unfit to serve. The problem is it should have been done while they're in the act. And this would have been stopped. So now they're giving them their little books and they're trying to soften the water by saying, well, I only did it because, Donald Trump's an existential. That's a feeling. It's not a fact. We've had it feels like 6 terms he's been under, but we've had 1 term and this new term, and he has yet to do anything that they have accused him of.
Yeah.
Not even close to it, the exact opposite. But we still reverberate that garbage of saying, well, it's Trump derangement. No. It was Trump opportunity. These are not. He has a PhD. He's not stupid. They knew what they were doing. They chose to do it. They did it on our watch. And now they're trying to make it to where it's still Trump. It's still Trump because Trump derangement still holds water with what? The propaganda media.
There you go.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.